friend.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and we
Is
just
that
got
the
a
only
big
dude
teaser
they
for
have
Superman
up there?
Legacy, now renamed just Superman. So we're going to break down this tease, the new cast, Lex Luthor, Kingdom Come connections, and what all this information is going to be
Educate
telling
me,
us about the
brother.
new Batman movie, The Brave and the Bold. A little later, I'm
Educate
going to be
me.
joined by ScreenCrush's Colton Ogburn and special guest Cameron Caskey. And Cameron has a theory about this new teaser that is so perfect you are going to want to hear it.
Educate
First, let me
me.
break down everything we know so far. As
I am
lot
a
of you know,
novice.
Guardians of the Galaxy writer and director James Gunn and his
Visionary.
producing partner Peter Safran are rebooting the DC
Psychopath.
film franchise, rebranding it as the DCU.
So no more Batfleck? No more Ezra? No more Henry Cavill?
That's the only
Nope,
one
in
I'm
fact,
sad
the rumor
about.
is Henry Cavill is now in the MCU, and we got a video up about that right now. Gunn and Safran are
We took
restarting
him!
this universe, and they have announced the first 10 projects in the theme of Chapter 1, called Gods and
I
Monsters.
still don't get
like how
it.
Marvel does phases, but like DC's just calling them chapters. Now, I'm not going to run through every single
Yeah, but
project
Marvel is
because
phase
we
1,
already
phase
did that
2.
in
You
this
see the
video,
chronological.
but they
Gods
all
and
in some
Monsters, I
way
don't get
deal
it.
with either a godlike hero or a monster or monstrous person. One
Okay.
example
God, I'm stupid. God, that makes so much sense. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very slow.
is how Batman the Brave and the Bold movie is going to deal with a slightly older Bruce Wayne who has to train his murderous former assassin son Damian to be the new Robin. But I'll explain how the new Batman movie ties into this teaser toward the end of the video.
How they don't make him like super old? Like, God, don't give me like a fan casting like I very much want and then get rid of Batman in 2 movies. Like, give us a good time with Batman, man. Make it good.
And I want to remind you guys that in our merch store right now we have
No.
this. So here's what
There
we
we
know
go.
about this movie. It's been renamed Superman, and this is actually the first Superman movie
Very
with
creative.
just that single name title.
Very
because
creative.
The 1978 film is technically called Superman the Movie. Now there are a lot of hints that they are taking Superman back to his roots with this film. For one, Lois Lane actor Rachel Brosnahan, marvelous Mrs. Maisel herself, released this TikTok from the first day on set.
Yeah, I remember seeing this. Yeah. I mean, it's Lex Luthor and Superman. Of course they're gonna be on set together.
And that is, of course, the original Superman theme. Now, Gunn
Oh,
hasn't
the
said for sure,
theme.
but I'm
Yeah, that's
really
made no
hoping that
effect
they
on me.
reuse John Williams' original Superman theme, the greatest superhero theme of all time. It would be a
Cap.
huge indication of the tone of this movie, that it's going to be very far from the grounded, realistic, grimdark tone of Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman.
Shut up, though. I love that. It was different and good. Henry Cavill was great. Warner Brothers screwed them.
Now, with her there is David Gordon Sweat, who plays Superman, and that is Nicholas Hoult, formerly the Beast, as Lex Luthor. Notice that he is already bald for the role. He's not going to start off
Commitment.
with hair like Jesse Eisenberg did in the DCEU.
Let's forget
And the
he
casting
existed.
is where we get more connections to the 1978 film. Terrence Rosemore is playing Otis, the Luthor henchman played by Ned Beatty in the original movie.
No effect on that to me. I don't get it.
And Sarah Sampaio is playing Eve Taskmacher, another one of Luthor's henchmen who
I
turns
know
on
the
him
name
and steals
Taskmacher.
an unconsensual kiss from Superman.
Cancelled!
So
That was a
just
deuce.
having these two hench people instead of, say, Mercy Graves hints that we could be getting a Luthor who would be more of a crime boss and maybe not the billionaire Luthor that we've seen since the 80s. I really hope it's the billionaire Luthor because that's my favorite version of the character,
Yeah.
but I digress.
What do you mean
The
crime
other
boss?
cast
I don't want the
members to note
Penguin.
Here are Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen,
This
as
one
well
I know,
as several
yes.
superheroes. They
Yep.
have cast Hawkgirl, Metamorpho,
Great
Guy
casting,
Gardner,
great
Mr. Terrific,
casting.
and the
Great
Engineer, a
casting.
character from The Authority. Now, what I think is
3 of them I
significant
have
here
no
is
idea, but the
Metamorpho
other
and
3
the
I know.
Engineer could fall into that monster category. They're both humans who do not look human. While you could say that
Don't
the
judge
other
them.
3 heroes fall into the gods category of this chapter. Hawkgirl is an alien, Guy Gardner is a Green Lantern who's super powerful and a bit of an ass, and Mr. Terrific is essentially an Olympic level athlete.
Yeah,
Now,
okay, don't call that God. Like, he's a great... Yeah, you're kind of stretching the term God a bit. You know, Superman is like a godlike creature, but Mr. Terrific is just... He's great, but he's... You're saying the term God. Put some reverence on the term.
I would imagine this movie picks up very early in Superman's career when all these heroes are already active and maybe on some kind of super team.
Yeah, well, that
The
makes sense.
JSA?
I'm going to talk to Cameron in just a little bit about what that casting means and what possible superhero teams these heroes could be a part of. But then we got this new teaser for the first day of filming. This is the new super suit and of course the new S-Shield. Now you'll notice of course the snow, which seems to imply that Superman will once again have his Fortress of
That's
Solitude.
always, you have
Another
to.
echo of the original Superman film
That's
series.
not an echo from the original, so that's... Now you're stretching. It feels like you want it to be connected to a 1970s Superman movie, okay? You're stretching a bit. getting on my nerves.
That is the S-Shield from the comic book Kingdom Come.
This
and
I
this
agree
explains
with, yes.
a lot about what this movie is going to be doing.
Because James Gunn spoke about it.
It is one of my all-time favorite comic book stories. It takes place in a future where Superman has retired because he feels out of touch with this new generation of careless, violent superheroes. These new edgy heroes, which are meant to be a dark mirror of the 90s edgy heroes, allowed Lois Lane to die. So the story is about Superman having to rejoin other classic heroes, like an elderly Batman, to stop Luthor and rein in this younger generation
That
of
sounds like
heroes.
an amazing
But there's
story.
an important difference to note here. That older Superman's shield was red and black, where here we see the same S
Red and
design,
yellow.
but it's red and yellow, which could be hinting at some kind of evolution for this character. Like maybe at some point we're going to end up at Kingdom Come. Now, Brandon Routh
Oh,
of
that would be
Superman
so good. But Batman, but they already said Batman's going to be a bit elder. I would have liked if they were a bit the same age, kind of like Robert Pattinson's Batman, I guess, so we can see the evolvement together. I don't know the Kingdom Come story, so I don't know if that will work. But that sounds so good. I had no idea what Kingdom Come was. I seen James Gunn tweet a lot about it, but that sounds so awesome.
Returns did return to the role of Superman for the CW's crossover event, where he played a version of Superman that also wore this logo. But that was an older Superman. David Corenswet is a younger Superman. James Gunn specifically recast Henry Cavill to get a younger actor. So Cameron Kasky, why do you think the young Superman has this Kingdom Come shield?
I think there's a chance we're getting a reverse Kingdom Come, because we're coming out of this dark, gritty world of DC heroes, and James Gunn's trying to send a signal that it's cool to have a Superman who's just kind of a nice guy.
There's
And
nothing
in
wrong with
Kingdom
that.
Come, of course, Alex Ross was tired of...
Oh, he's pointing to the fact that Zack Snyder's DC was more dark and grimace in a way. Not all of it, but the surrounding aspects of it. So reverse is like he's saying we're going from that to a lighter version. That doesn't fill me with confidence.
gritty cable-style superheroes of the 90s, and he was saying, okay, Superman being just a nice guy who likes being a nice guy, that actually works, and that's something that comic books need. So I think that this Kingdom Come symbol, other than just, you know, renewing the iconography and saying we can do a different thing here that looks really cool and modern while also drawing back to the classics, could be a sign that with this movie, James Gunn is saying, okay, we've got characters like the Authority, we've got these dark and gritty heroes, Superman's coming in to bring a new era.
Yeah, my question, though, I talked about this a second ago, and the way that they're kind of revisiting some Superman 78 things. Otis, Miss Taskmacher. You know, normally you would expect for Mercy Graves to be like Luthor's henchman, but now, like, we've got a traditional Luthor, Nicholas Holtz-Bald, which we saw in Rachel Brosnahan's TikTok. Do you think we're going to go to, like, greatest criminal mastermind on earth, Lex Luthor, with, like, the John Williams theme? Are we just going to, is he going to try to revisit
I hope
it
not.
that much?
I really
Where do you think
hope
we're going
not.
to land with this, Cam?
I think Luthor is going to be a very, very evil psychopath. I think that James Gunn is not afraid to make villains who are irredeemable. I think we saw that with the High
No,
Evolutionary
some villains
Guardians
need to be
3. And I think
irredeemable.
he
Not
wants
every
to
villain
make
is a
very
Loki.
stark contrast to this Superman. So, you know,
That's-
we might
that's
get
how it should
that
be.
kind of sense of humor that you get in every James Gunn project. We might actually get screaming Luthor who's constantly pissed at Otis. But I do think we are going to get a
That sounds
proper
way
psychopath
70s.
out of this guy. I think with this very strong emphasis on how wholesome and
My
sweet
favorite
this
Lex is
Superman's gonna
Smallville
be,
Lex.
the only
It's always been
appropriate
that.
way to match that is Luthor, who's as ruthless as Superman is kind.
But do you think he's going to be a billionaire? Because that's one change that John Byrne brought to the Luthor character in the 80s was making him say, no, if this guy was this smart, he wouldn't just be like hiding out in caves and pouring like lab chemicals into a chemistry set. He'd be a billionaire. And I love that change because it also gives Superman an opponent he can't fight with his fists. Do you think they're going to toss that away? I hope not.
It was always like that though. Superman could never go directly at Lex Luthor. From what I know, from what I've seen, he could never go. He's always had a public face to him, so he could never go punch him. I mean, firstly, he would knock his head off his shoulders, literally. I think I'm mixing my messages.
The modern Lex Luthor is the billionaire. So I think James Gunn, while writing a story that is Superman for our times, is aware that the public sentiment in our world right now is that the billionaires that we
Suck.
see fly into outer
We
space
hate
are
them.
the Lex Luthors.
Amen.
So I am very much of... I
so-
think that Mad Scientist Luthor has been retired for a while now. I don't even remember the last time I saw it, other than sort of the guy in My Adventures with Superman, which is a great
True.
cartoon if you haven't
Great
seen
cartoon.
it.
Yeah.
Very,
Fantastic.
and it seems as though
Max.
tonally it's very similar to this new Superman, and it's also that Kingdom Come symbol. So I think we're getting a Lex who is going to be a brutal monster.
Good, that's what we
I
need.
think Otis might be nice though. I think we might get a
Oh, he
friendly.
has to be.
I have no idea who this
I mean,
Otis
the
and
guy he
Tess
cast
Walker
is a
is.
veteran of the Guardians films, and I think he just kind of exudes this kind of like niceness and loveliness. Colton, James Gunn's also, just as he was writing the script, said, you know, he called Superman a big, lovable galoot who can do anything, but he just wants to help, things like that. Do you think Cameron's right about this reverse Kingdom Come? Are there any other comics that you know of that, like, the Gunn has mentioned, or that you think this movie should really be taking direction from?
Well, I think we're spot on with the Kingdom Come thing. You know, in the comics, that was like an alternate Earth Superman, so I'm wondering if James Gunn kind of went with that logo as kind of a wink and nod to the fans, like, hey, this is different. This isn't Henry Cavill's Superman. This is a different thing. And
Oh,
with
that's smart, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And, you know, with the picture he released, you know, I want to focus on the snow in the picture. Simple explanation is it's just Superman
It's
is
the Fortress
probably,
of
like, near his
Solitude.
Fortress of
It's
Solitude.
that simple.
But
Don't complicate things.
if we're going to overanalyze it, which is what we do
When we
here,
overanalyze
I'm
stuff, we
wondering,
always get wrong stuff.
if this could be a hint at them adapting Superman for All Seasons. That's a comic run by
great
Jeff.
comic book.
Yeah, it's by Jeff.
God, I have no comic knowledge. I really don't. That's why I need to. I need these people. They overanalyze and get things wrong, but it's very educational.
Loeb, I believe, right? We get these 4 different Superman stories through the 4 seasons.
That's
and
correct.
I think
Okay.
that could be a great way to show us this Superman's origin without actually doing another origin movie. I think Gunn has been pretty adamant that he doesn't want to do an origin movie,
Good.
and I'm glad about
It's like
that.
it's like someone
I
saying we
think
need
for
a Spider-Man
spring,
origin
you show
story.
us Clark as like a
That would
young
be so
adult in
stupid.
Kansas, grappling with his powers, and then leaving to work in the city. Summer, you introduce like characters like Lois and Lex Luthor, maybe Lex and Clark will be friends at first or something like that.
Don't like this idea.
You know, like kind of a Smallville vibe.
Don't like this
and
idea at
play
all.
into Clark's and Superman's life, like just show us their, you know, day-to-day life. And then fall, you shift to like this early days of Superman's career. He's been doing the superhero thing for a while, or maybe just a few months. You know, I know he's not too old. Metropolis at the time views him as like the symbol of hope. But then as you get into the winter months, I think you need to show how timeless the character of Superman is, and like the moral mission that was instilled in him by not only Pa Kent, but by Jor-El as well. And I think you start to show how Superman, he feels out of place, and how the world is maybe starting to like sour on Superman as this godlike being, and at the same time he might be starting to kind of maybe he's starting to sour on them as well, and that would kind of mirror Kingdom Come.
Are you trying to
In
hint
that
that's
comic, I
making
believe, like, we
Superman
see
evil?
Superman, he
No.
feels very disconnected from
depressed?
humanity.
Or
If
doesn't
I'm
give a
remembering right,
fuck?
he's retired. So while we won't be seeing a retired Superman in this movie, we could still see a Superman who feels disconnected. You know, after all, he is like this small town boy from Kansas.
We're
not
just
living in a
getting
big city.
Superman. How we
So,
can get him disconnected
and
already?
Going off a quote, I think it was Peter Safran actually that said this. They released a quote a while ago saying how Superman is kindness in a world where kindness is old-fashioned. So we could see this version of Superman trying to grapple with fitting in while simultaneously being true to himself. And I think that's where most of the movie would take place, is in that winter season, that 4th chapter.
No,
And
please
it would be
don't
us
make it
getting
like
to
this.
see Superman become the hero we know him to be, and maybe even try to change the world and like give it, you know, this like hope of a better tomorrow, because that's what Superman is supposed to represent. So that's what I'm hoping for in the movie.
Also, Kingdom Come ends with Superman planting crops in the spring. So you might be onto something there. I will say, though, I'm really hoping that we get to see, at some point, actual Kingdom Come. And you can't do Kingdom Come with these characters, because as I'm going to talk about later on, I think we're going to have a Batman who's not quite old and Brave and the Bold. I think he's going to be a younger guy. And I actually think what I'm going to say about Batman ties in perfectly with everything you guys are saying. So I can't wait to tell you guys about that in a little bit. But also, I want, Batman has to be an old man in Kingdom Come. That's part of the point. His body's damaged. All the heroes have to be past their prime. I hope that happens. I hope that actually...
Brother, we're just getting this new DCU. I don't want to have a retired Batman already. No, that's in chapter 6, okay? Like 2035. No. calm down on the retirement parties.
Their grand arc of chapter 1, 2, and 3 doesn't end with dark side, because everybody's like, he's Thanos, you know? He's proto-Thanos. I
He's
hope that it
Beta
ends
Thanos.
with something that's got a statement to make about the state of comic book movies or the state of superheroes, and that's what Kingdom Come is. Like Cam said, it's essentially a mission statement. So one thing you brought
Why is the audio?
up, Colton, about Superman going through these seasons, which is a great
Why is the audio out of sync?
this league in this. Like, why the hell are
Okay, there we go. That's
Metamorpho,
better.
Mr. Terrific? You're a huge DC guy. Tell me what we can expect out of this.
Well, I think one thing we can expect is James Gunn to post about it. That's something we've learned about the universe, is James Gunn is going to be posting about it on Twitter. And
Oh, not on Twitter, my friend. He's a blue sky
excuse
man
me,
now.
on
Blue Sky
X.
and IG and Threads. No, he's firmly walked away.
good for him.
Yeah.
I think that the Justice League run he references the most is Justice League International, which is one of the greatest Justice League runs of all time. I know you love JLA by Morrison, but he's always posting about Justice League International, and we've got a real mixture of heroes here. We've got Guy Gardner, who really became famous in Justice League International when Batman punched him in the face. We've got Mr. Terrific.
One of the all-time
Oh,
greatest comic book
imagine if
moments
that's
ever.
your call-
He and
your
Batman are set
claim
up,
to
they're gonna
fame.
swear go.
Punch
And
to the
Gardner's
face
like,
from
I'll
Batman.
turn off my ring, and Batman just punches him one time in the face, and Gardner's unconscious for the entire issue while the heroes go off on an adventure.
Which I
Oh, that's so good.
Peak comics in the
Oh,
80s,
that's so
late 80s, man,
good.
those guys hit their stride.
And knowing James Gunn and knowing his personal relationship with
Please,
Nathan
someone do
Fillion,
that
I'm
live action.
near 100% sure he's setting us up for that moment. But you know, the interesting thing, and I
Post-credit
don't think
scene
this
is
is
him
what they're
waking
going
up.
to be doing, but like Colton said, this is what YouTube speculation is for, is that in 2018 there was or 2016 maybe, there was a DC team called the Terrifics, and it was a Fantastic Four style team with Mr.
Mr. Terrific had his
serving as
own
the
team?
Reed Richards, Phantom Lady serving as the Sue Storm, and then Plastic Man and Metamorpho. So the inclusion of Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho makes me think
Wasn't
that
Plastic
what
Man
we're
also
getting here
announced?
is sort of a proto Justice League Terrifics mixture. I think that it's
Oh, it
really
makes
great
sense
that
from
we're
the
getting
people
these
that are
heroes we haven't
announced.
particularly seen before.
A lot of them
But I think
barely
the real
seen the live
tell
action.
in terms of teams is the fact that the engineer is in this, because we've got all these iconic Superman characters. We've got these characters from Superman 78. We've got Superman himself. I personally think that the real protagonist is going to be Lois, but that's a different conversation. But we've got the engineer from The Authority, who's not an iconic or famous character, which just further solidifies this Kingdom Come story to me, where you've got these brutal authority style heroes who, like the Avengers, will kill people, and Superman's purpose in this story is
It's true. The
leading
Avengers do
other
kill
heroes.
people. You nailed it. You got them on that. They do go a murdering. These
like to
Avengers
kill.
in the MCU. Yeah.
So I think, you know, we're going to get Superman leading these new heroes and serving as a sort of sign to Metamorpho and Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl and these other characters that, you know, there are brighter days ahead, and that the kind of dog days are over, not to reference another James Gunn project.
No, but James Gunn does have this theme in all of his movies. Like, he loves to make movies about outcasts, about people who are depressed and downtrodden.
That's
And
why
if he
he's
is
so
gonna map out
great.
however many
His
chapters.
creativity, his mind. God, I'd love to live a day inside the mind of James Gunn, because how he tackles these subjects, these topics, is incredible. God, I wish I could sit down and talk with him for an hour, because the way he constructs projects is incredible. How he manages to get no-name characters, but he extracts so much emotion into a story and makes you care. He made Guardians of the Galaxy into a $1 billion IP. For the movies, only hardcore comic fans knew about Guardians. It's amazing.
They're going to do, I could definitely see it following the arc that we've seen in so many of his films, which is broken people, such as Metamorpho, people who don't fit into society. Somebody like Superman comes in, like Peter Quill did, who's a little broken. He's a survivor of a Holocaust, but ultimately just wants to do good and has a good heart, kind of showing this world the way. And I love that. I love that. Look, as much as we talk about Marvel planning everything, and they do plan things out way more than franchises like Dark Universe, but Marvel also is really good at riffing. You know, they put Thanos in the post-credit scene of the Avengers because Joss Whedon said, oh, we got to throw Thanos in there. They didn't have the Infinity Saga mapped out. The Mind Stone was clearly not always going to be Loki's scepter. You know, that was an obvious retcon. I love the idea, like I talked about a second ago, that they're actually setting up a theme for this. And I don't know if it can actually work, you know, like when you tell different filmmakers and showrunners, hey, follow this
Yeah, that
theme.
can never work, no.
I don't know, maybe creatively people are
That
looking
can
forward
never
to that.
work.
Maybe they'll find it stifling.
Yeah.
Colton, do you think that James
You need to
Gunn
be
is
very
gonna
specific in your choices
putting
of
a stranglehold
people.
on creators with
On
this kind of
the type of
overarching
creators you choose, if you want to stick to that
Well, we have to
very
remember, James
strictly.
Gunn learned from the best. I mean, he worked under Kevin Feige, and I mean, say what you want to say about
The
Marvel
GOAT.
right now. Kevin Feige, what he did with the Infinity Saga was absolutely brilliant, and I think the only problem the MCU is having right now is that Kevin Feige is spread too thin. So
That's
I'm hoping that James
very
Gunn
true
is able
fact.
to take what he learned working
That's
under
not true.
Kevin
He's no
Feige
wrong.
and give a good balance. I mean, you have to have some studio interference when you're creating a cinematic universe. So, I mean, studio interference is not necessarily a bad thing. You've got to have somebody that can tie all the stories together. And I think James Gunn, both creatively and just his demeanor, you know, he seems like a nice guy. I think that he has what it takes to work with creators. He's not just a producer, he's also a filmmaker, so I think that'll help. And going back to the cast, if anybody can make obscure characters work, it's certainly James Gunn. Like what he
He's
did
the
with
master at
Guardians,
that.
what he did with the Suicide Squad, Polka Dot Man. I trust him to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm excited for James Gunn taking over. I think it's gonna. Fingers crossed it goes well.
It's also worth noting in terms of the Infinity Saga that James Gunn is quoted saying that he thought of the lore of the Infinity Stones in like 45 minutes.
I wrote that scene in about an hour and a half. It just like came up with what the Infinity Stones were.
So ideally,
What?
he took a lot of time during the extensive strikes that just happened to make. an
God,
even
that's
deeper
I
plan
really
than the
want to
45-minute
talk with
Infinity
that man
Stone.
so much
But,
sometime, someday.
if
Well,
if
he technically as a writer was on strike during that time, so I doubt if he did.
Well, I don't know, because he was producing the universe too. I don't want to think about it too hard.
Yeah.
Point is,
James
we
Gunn
got a-
also
we got a
said that he was
relatively
asked
fair
for a
deal.
lot from
So,
other
Cam, what I thought you were saying a second
people
ago about
taking
him
care of
taking
Marvel
inspiration
projects
from
for their
Justice League
opinions as
International,
well.
I think makes total sense
The man is
because
such a
he
genius.
said that when he did the Suicide Squad, he wanted to think of it like a sequel to the John Ostrander books from the 80s. So he's very much in that period, in that lore. It's probably when he just was coming of age and when he was super into comic books. So Cameron, one thing I want to ask you about is you have I don't know how much of this you can talk about. You have a personal experience with this movie. Are you able to talk to us about that?
What?
I mean, oh yeah. So I have a failed Jimmy Olsen audition, which I'm glad I didn't get because Skylar Gisondo is one of the best
That's
actors in my entire
insane.
generation, and because of that, I can't particularly talk about it in depth.
Because I bet he knows
although I
some
will
stuff
say
that
I
actually
do think this is
majority
gonna
of
be a very
people
good
don't.
movie.
Because he was in the
You
audition
got to
room.
what? Second round? Third round?
I did not make it very far. I mean, I don't look like the character. I didn't sell it. You got to be really talented to work.
You're
with this.
not a good actor. There's also that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Damn.
I did not sell it. I watched the tape back and I was like, okay, I'll happily accept this if this is how it goes. But I really hope this isn't the standard we have for the new DC universe.
So just in the process of going through this, and you're saying it's going to be good, do you really think that we're getting like a sunny, optimistic movie here?
I think that if James Gunn has taught us anything, it's that he knows how to match the tone of the material. I mean, you know,
He's
if
a
you
genius.
read Ostrander Suicide Squad and you watch that movie,
Some people are
it
just
is
born
the
to do
tone of
these
the
things.
material. So I think that, you know, he's made a lot of movies that seem irreverent and goofy.
Marvel is still my
because
number
he
one,
likes
but
working
God,
with
I
those
love
sorts
James
of
Gunn.
characters. And I think we'll get
God,
you
I
know,
want them both to be so successful.
wide selection. I mean, I think what he's doing with this movie is showing us what the range of DC Comics and their properties and their heroes are. So you get somebody like Metamorpho, played by Anthony Carrigan, who's so
Victor
talented, but
Zsasz.
particularly very funny, and then you get somebody like the Engineer, who's part of the Dark and Dismal Authority. And I think that this movie is gonna show us how far in either direction we can go, because obviously there's not going to be a sunny disposition to the entire DCU. I mean, there's going to be a Swamp Thing
There-
movie. You
That's
can't
There
make
impossible.
definitely shouldn't be. Yeah,
Exactly. DC is known to
And
be the
really,
gritty,
when you
dark
look back to the DCEU,
superhero
I think that's
world.
where the problem was. It was this tone
There's the
imbalance.
sunny side, but
you know, you can't
majority
have the light
of it,
without
that's
the
what I
dark.
know.
You can't have, you know, to pull from Twin
Darkness.
Peaks, you can't have the sweet pie without the bitter coffee. You know what I mean? So the last thing I just want to talk about, and in just a minute I'm going to talk about how I think all of this connects to Batman the Brave and the Bold, but the main promotional image they have used for this movie hasn't been from Superman for All Seasons or Kingdom Come. It's been from All-Star Superman.
Isn't that the one where he's sitting?
Grant
That's
Morrison,
the one
Frank
that
Quitely
I've seen the
comic,
most.
dying, and kind of gets to wrap up all of these classic Silver Age elements to his life. I don't think we're going to be seeing dying Superman in this, but what part of All-Star Superman do you think that we're going to get to see, or do you think we're going to get to see here in this movie?
I think the thing we're going to get from All-Star Superman is the tone. I mean, I don't think we're going to kick off the DCU with the story about a dying Superman.
That would be
but I do
wild
think that
twist,
All-Star
though.
Superman is pretty widely regarded by most fans of DC Comics as one of the top 3 examples of what the character can accomplish emotionally. So I think that the tone is what we're going to be getting from that. And I think that he's right to be drawing from that, and I don't think anybody disagrees.
And I think you're 100% right. So guys, now I want to talk about how all of this fits into Batman, the Brave and the Bold. Colton Ogburn, find him here on ScreenCrush. Cameron Kasky, activist, writer, actor. You can find him all over the place. The socials are listed below. Thanks, guys. You can find all their social links below. So now let's take all of that information and Cameron's theory about Kingdom Come and apply it to Batman, the Brave and the Bold. So this is a new film, separate from the Matt Reeves Batman, that is based on the classic Grant Morrison Batman and Son storyline from the comics. Basically, one of Batman's greatest foes is Ra's al Ghul, the nigh-immortal leader of the League of Shadows Assassins Guild. His daughter, Talia al Ghul, and Bruce Wayne had a bit of a romance in their younger days, and Talia had a son without Bruce's knowledge. So Talia then raised this boy, Damien, to be in the League of Assassins, so he's like a cute little murder boy. When she can't handle him anymore, she drops him off with Bruce and says, hey, he's out of control, you train him. So Batman then has to raise a new Robin who wants to kill people. Gunn has specifically said he was interested in the role reversal here. Now we're used to seeing a dark, brooding Batman and a lighthearted Robin, but instead they've introduced a version of Robin that would force Batman to become the one who jokes and who's more lighthearted. So let's take Cameron's theory about the S-Shield and Kingdom Come and apply it here. If James Gunn is trying to establish a more lighthearted DCU to separate it from the grimdark Snyderverse, then this is the way to do it. I think the Bruce Wayne that we're going to meet is only going to be about 29 years old, and he and Talia could have hooked up in his late teens and they could have like an 11-year-old son. The math works out. And this 29-year-old Bruce is going to be on the cusp of becoming an ultra-violent Batman like the one we saw in Batman v Superman. But having a murderous mom put in the mansion is going to force Bruce to confront that violent part of himself, just like in a meta way, Gunn is rejecting the violent, dark DCEU. And then we can look at the broader theme of gods and monsters. Each of the new projects are about this same thin line. When you have great godlike power, all it takes is one mistake, one slip up to become a monster. This is exactly what happened in the story Kingdom Come. The superhero Magog was careless and too violent, and he caused the